star down, and I'll start with the highlight there that you heard on this radio station. If you listened to it live yesterday, Cooper Rush. The fumbled snap to start off with, out of the shotgun. Eagles ball on the 17-yard line. He was high to Tolbert, 3rd and 10. He skipped one to Hunter Lipke. At one point, he was 8 of 17 for 36 yards, 0 for 5 on passes over 10 yards. Bobby had the note that CeeDee Lamb had 13 yards on 7 targets in the first half. Cooper then, 10 of 19 for 38, 2 yards per attempt. Did you find the note on whether that was the worst in the league this season?
It is. The completed air yards per attempt was 0.9 yards, and that is the worst figure in the NFL by about half a yard.
He underthrew CeeDee Lamb, and he had Slay beat in the third quarter. The stats, courtesy of Bobby Belt, on 10-plus air yards for Cooper Rush yesterday. 0 for 6, 0 for 9 with the air yards, 7 for 10 negative air yards, 5 for 6. These are the hideous, ugly numbers that came out of the right arm of Cooper Rush. And Choppy texted the group yesterday and said, I don't remember him being this bad a couple of years ago, because he wasn't. The Cowboys weren't winning 4 or 5 games by throwing for 50 or 60 yards. Now, you weren't getting any 300s in there, but you had games over 200 yards for Cooper Rush. He was not just someone that was breathing with a pulse out there to take the snaps. He made a couple of plays in every single game, and none of that came close to even happening yesterday.
There are 2 kinds of backups. You
just hear him talk through that bag.
You have the backups that manage the game.
You just got the YouTube to jump by 220 people. We're almost at 1,000. Started the segment at 700.
See how long I can go with this. You can't. You have quarterbacks that are backups that manage the game, and then ones that cost you the game, like that you just can't do anything with.
Yeah,
Cooper was somebody that could manage the game. 2 years ago. Yesterday, you couldn't do anything with him. Not only it's like he had never thrown a football before. Like he didn't warm up. I mean, he was skipping rocks. He was out there like Donovan McNabb, late Donovan, like Washington Commanders Donovan, where he's out there just skipping it everywhere. Like none of those passes were even remotely. Those are non-competitive passes.
Cooper, what the heck was that, dude?
Yeah, just didn't play well enough. We ran it well in the first half. We just didn't capitalize sometimes down there in the red zone. A couple good long drives. Defense gets a turnover, and we don't capitalize. And it can snowball fast when you don't take care of the ball as well. Like you said earlier, spotted them one early in the first quarter, and then going in the end zone. So turnovers will always kill you, and we had a chance with the defense playing well and to overcome those, come out of halftime, and we just didn't.
No, he sounds exactly like he played lifeless and asleep. During the 4-game winning streak in 2022, he did not turn it over once with interceptions. He threw for 235, 215, 223, and then 102 before losing to Filthy with 181 yards and 3 interceptions.
Yeah, the raw QBR yesterday was the second worst in the NFL. Not the worst. The worst was Mac Jones. But Cooper Rush's raw QBR yesterday was 14.9, which is just brutal. I mean, it was an awful performance from Cooper Rush. He couldn't do anything in terms of completely inaccurate. I think it was the first third down throw he had where you saw, all right, there's the lack of arm strength. He just couldn't get the ball to CeeDee Lamb. And there were a couple different times where you saw, all right, he's having trouble getting the ball there. But I mean, this is maybe what you'd expect it would look like, where even with Dak in there, they looked as awful as they did. You put Cooper Rush in there and it's going to look worse. It's just, man, the decision to start Rush looks really bad right now.
Well, yeah, it does after the game, but I would fight anyone for the purposes of trying to win a couple of games until you're totally, completely out of it. 4-1 has to count for something a couple of years ago.
Sure.
It has to count for something. Start Cooper Rush. But my next star down is for Mike McCarthy and his offense and his play calling.
First down now from the 42. Almost messed up the handoff. Lance pulls it back. The ball is caught by Ferguson and fumbled. Picked up by the Eagles and run down the left sideline by Blankenship.
All right. Now for the play calling for Big Mike. CeeDee Lamb screens that freaking reverse to Lamb that they act like no one has seen on tape.
They do it every week.
My God, that the same thing. Run some type of action off of it, or at least Bones Fossil said, "All right, maybe we'll do something different with Turpin and these fake reverses.
Do
maybe
a pass.
We'll do something. Just do something different." Rico on 3rd and goal, that had the AT&T Stadium crowd pissed off. No gain of 8. The first 19 plays, 47 yards, no gain of 8 or more yards. Nance kept saying that. Again, your first 19 plays, 47 yards, no gain of 8 or more. And then, nothing was worse than opening the third quarter and the 2 straight back-to-back plays to Rico and Tolbert. 2 throws for 2 yards, well short of the sticks, not even trying to get close to the first down marker. And it felt like an absolute give up. It felt like an absolute give up right there. Like Mike McCarthy's trying to make Cooper Rush it like he is. I'm not accusing him. But it's so bad. It's like he's trying to make Cooper's numbers so terrible that other evaluators throughout the league give him a head coaching opportunity after this to say, well, you didn't have your starter. I mean, this is how bad the drop-off is.
Yeah, you won 12 games 3 years in a row, then everything went to hell this one year, and you lose your quarterback, and
chaos.
So bad.
Yes.
I just don't understand.
I didn't think his play calling, I didn't think I could be more critical of McCarthy after last week. I think this was worse. I think this was worse in terms of what they were trying to do out there.
Yeah, I mean,
then to not even want to dial it up a little bit more with Kellen on the other side, like that straight up one-on-one matchup on the other side. No, he dialed it back.
Look, I mean, and
I don't get into. I'm sorry, I'm keep interrupting. My mind is just it's.
You're
frazzled.
blown away.
I'm blown away. I don't even remember what I was going to say.
That actually, if he is like trying to look worse, that actually would be next level. That would be next level sabotage. You don't actually see that ever happening. Like, I'm going to look so bad that people are going to give me pity jobs.
I remember what I was going to say. I don't really get into play calling and criticizing and all that stuff. I'm not going to pretend to be X's and O's guy and break things down of this is the zone coverage and zero blitz and this is what they're seeing, and then people playing cover zero, people going in and playing too deep. I don't try to act like I'm seeing all that stuff. I rely on our scouts, especially after watching the film, like post Hut Clarity tomorrow at 7:20. But there are some times where it's so obvious and it jumps off the screen or jumps through the radio. That was how bad that was yesterday for McCarthy and his offense.
It was brutal because it didn't look like you were having trouble running the ball. Like, it looked like you actually could have gotten the ground game going, and they moved away from that really quickly. And even in a game where, I mean, this was technically still a one-possession game going into halftime because, I mean, obviously with a 2-point conversion, but it's 14-6 at halftime. Don't tell me about all these circumstances where you can't run the ball because you got these blocks. You were moving the ball somewhat effectively with Rico Dowdle early yesterday, and you decided, all right, you know what? Let's get away from that. Let's try these, negative 6-yard screen passes, and let's try random 30-yard shots down the field every 5 or 6 throws. It was just brutal.
They were running it so well with Rico. They had a 3rd and goal run from the 3.
That I lost my mind.
The Micah forced fumble. I think you have 1st and goal on the 6. Yeah. Look at RJ's eyes are up to over 1,000 now on Twitch and YouTube. But Choppy, they ran that 3rd and goal from the 3, and Arlington lost their minds out there.
I mean, I don't know how you didn't lose your mind on that one. I mean, that was absurd. 3rd and goal that you have to score a touchdown. I mean, what do you don't have? If you had Derrick Henry, that's a bad play. If you had Derrick Henry, it's a bad play. There's a million things you could do there from 3rd and 3, including use Trey Lance and get his legs rolling.
Bam! I wrote that down in parentheses. I'm like, Trey Lance, run him,
add a dimension,
do something.
I mean, that felt like a time where you can run the Trey Lance package there, not randomly bring him in to hand off the ball on 1st down in the 3rd quarter and then go put Cooper back in it. I have no idea what their thought process was yesterday. Like I said, it didn't even feel like they had a game plan. It felt like they got in there and just went, what do you want to do now? What do you want to do here? Where do we move things now? And they just looked wholly unprepared.
Here's the question that I have. I hate asking this, but I guess I could have stopped, and I didn't. So here we go. This feels like rock bottom for the Cowboys season. But it could probably still get worse, right? There are 2 plays in particular that made me feel like we had hit rock bottom. I'm going to go ahead and go to the TV call For cut number 28, I thought Jim Nantz did a really good job of laying out how embarrassing this play was.
3rd and 9. Ball's back, knocked out of his hands. Cowboy lineman, football follies, and maybe Philadelphia has it. Oh my goodness, the Keystone Cops just broke out here on the field, and the Cowboys have yet another low light.
There's a minute 14 left in the third quarter. Cooper Rush fumbles it again. And then Terrence Steele decides he's going to pick up the ball 2 different times and, I don't know, convert on the 3rd and 9. He fails to fall on the ball. Hunter Lipke thinks about getting on the ball for a second, but also doesn't because he's like, Terrence Steele's got this. Surely he's going to fall on the ball so we can punt it as opposed to try to convert for a first down. But no, that's not what happened at all. That's play 1. Play 2 is when Eric Kendricks and the Cowboys in general had a 4-on-1 against Saquon Barkley. It's Saquon Barkley against 4 Cowboys defenders. He gets from the 22 to the 1-yard line, despite a 1-on-4 deficit and the fact that the Cowboys committed a penalty.
Yeah, he should have been stopped way back in the backfield. That play should have never happened at all.
Those 2 plays encapsulated like so much of what's wrong with this season. And then you get blown out at home again by a division rival, perhaps your most hated division rival. And I'm like, this is rock bottom. This is as bad as it's going to get. But then you look ahead to the schedule, or you hear Jerry Jones talking about how we should tear down the stadium because we can't put curtains up or whatever. It feels like it's going to get worse.
It absolutely can get worse because this isn't a disciplined team. That play right there that you talked about with Terrence Steele trying to pick up the ball, every offensive lineman knows you jump on the ball and you lay on top of it. That's the rule.
Yep.
And a team that's desperate and trying to make something happen out of nothing does something like that and then creates more problems. Lots of people texting me saying, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? I'm like, look, man, this team's not good enough to do the things that you want to do right now. The talent's not good enough. You do things like that, you're going to get them injured. You're going to get them hurt even more than they already are. If you're a good team, you can try some things out. If you're a bad team, you have to be good at the basics, and they're not even good at that right now. So yes, Kevin, with all the opponents that they have coming up, it can definitely get a lot worse for them.
Now,
is your rock bottom, you're mentioning this.
Yeah.
Is this rock bottom for you, the fan, rock bottom for the players, rock bottom for the coaches, rock bottom for the Jones family? Because I don't think
it's for the Jones family.
Right, there's 4 different
people. That's a great point.
Like,
fair. I'll say for the fan and the team. It's a little tougher on the team because I just can't speculate about what their mindset is. I can only talk about me as the fan, but I think for the team as well, but then again, maybe not. I do not think this is rock bottom for the Jones family whatsoever. I honestly, we talked about this earlier. I think one of their rock bottoms would be if they got flexed out. I think if they got flexed out of one of their primetime games, that would hurt their feelings more than some of these losses.
Yeah, and when you think, we'll see a lot of Eagles fans in the stadium, that's not the thing that's going to be a rock bottom for them by any means.
Because they're still in the
stadium. The tickets are sold. So that's definitely the thing for them, for the coaching staff, for the fans. Mike, that's always a curiosity. I don't know exactly when the point was for you, because you've become a very, laissez-faire is not even the right word, but you've become one of those that's just like, whatever, with them. Was there a game moment that you went no, or was it always a Jerry Jones specific type thing?
I think it was a buildup. I don't think it's like this is the moment, but I would say just watching playoff loss after playoff loss and then play their worst, and then there doesn't seem to be any type of transition in any offseason to change the way you do things. You look at teams that lose a World Series, lose an NBA Finals like the Mavericks did, and they're like, all right, and is this going to work or not, getting Klay Thompson and changing this and that out? Like, teams really try to change if they didn't win the championship. And it's like they just go about it, no, we got spring break. I got awesome places to be, spring break. Like, that's free agency, dude. Like, you should be working really hard. Like, no, it's Highland Park spring break, man. I got my grandkids to hang out with.
So it was like the all-encompassing
It's just
thing.
all, like, you can tell it's, to me, a franchise that's not trying their best to win.
I'm going to argue against that a little bit in a different perspective. I agree with your philosophy about how we need to actually adopt 24/7, 365 as a talent acquisition. But you hear Jerry say it so much. You just heard Steven say it, like 3 times in that interview we just had? I don't think they totally view these last 3 seasons like that at all. I think they're like, man, I really wish people would shut up about the playoffs because we won 36 games in the regular season. It's just us in Kansas City. Why don't they view it from that perspective of it's just us in Kansas City? So I don't think they went to the drawing board because I'm telling you, I really don't think that they view it as that bad.
No, I'm with you.
Because I think they're just like, what can you do?
When Trayvon Diggs stepped out to talk to a reporter, when Micah Parsons starts saying, and listen, the first part of what Micah Parsons says is absolutely right. You want to play for the guys in the room, the guys that have been doing it, the Zach Martins. Mike McCarthy can physically go coach anywhere else that he wants to. If something happened to him next year, Zach Martin might not be able to play anymore after next season. That's a possibility.
Do you want us to specifically? Yeah.
Let's play this audio because
I don't think we have this. I think this is a different question. We can play cut 15 if you want, but I think this is just Micah speaking about Mike McCarthy's future. I can take you into his other quote though.
Mike's on the final year of his contract, so outside there's of course going to be questions. What's the sentiment inside the locker room, and what do you tell people who are wondering about whether McCarthy will be your coach next year?
That's above my pay grade about if Mike is coaching again next year. But all coaching aside, Mike can leave and go wherever he wants. But the guys, I kind of feel bad for guys like Zach Martin and guys who might be on their last year or on their way out. Because that's who I wanted to hold the trophy for. You want to win games and do great things with those type of legends who put in more time and work than Mike McCarthy ever did. So those are the kind of guys that I have so much sympathy and hurt for.
But that right there, that second part of it can be looked at as finger pointing or I don't care about that guy. And that's where the next phase of rock bottom is, Kevin, to go along with this segment is right now they've done a good job of trying to hold things together and be with each other as a team. They've done a good job of it. But as things start to seep in and leadership on the team starts to see it's not going to go this way and next year is going to be different, finger pointing can start happening, fights on sidelines. There's a lot more that can happen before the end of this season that you can almost predict will because of the tension that's going on in the locker room between them and the media and so much more.
Do you think it's weird that, and maybe I'm off base, you can be like, I don't think that is an accurate statement, that it feels like the 2 biggest talking points right now coming out of, you got your ass handed to you. All right, you got destroyed in this game. And it feels like the 2 biggest talking points are Micah finishing out by saying Zach Martin and these other legends who put in more time than Mike McCarthy ever did. And why don't we put up curtains? It feels weird that you just went up against a division rival and you got smoked. And that's the 2 things that we're talking about.
Yeah, and Jerry loves that.
You're right
so
about
I
that.
I know this because I know Chris Young. If this happened with the Rangers, Corey Seager, I know he doesn't talk to the media much at all, but Corey Seager is, I guess, kind of trying to compare him to Micah Parsons as arguably the best player on the team. If Corey Seager said that about one of the coaches, or let's just say Bruce Bochy, and was talking about a veteran player on the team, let's take Nathan Eovaldi or Max Scherzer or something like that, Chris Young would be furious and would call him into a room and go, what the hell are you talking about? Jerry loves this because it's been on. They lost 34-6, and they are the main headline on ESPN. They are the main headline on NFL.com. And so Jerry actually loves when Trayvon Diggs did what he did to, I'm for Mike Leslie, right?
Yes.
Mike Leslie. And then I think that honestly, Jerry loves that it's about curtains right now. Jerry loves that Micah Parsons intentionally or unintentionally took a major shot at the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. He loves all that. He is not going to call in Micah Parsons and say, what the crap are you doing?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? We're getting our butts handed to us, and you're going to take a shot at our coach right now? Like, what kind of leadership is that? But
and that's the thing that needs to happen.
Jerry's smiling about that.
Yeah. because he likes to stir it up.
And that's legitimately what he told us.
Because it's on right now. Literally, I can look at the television, and Micah Parsons is leading SportsCenter ESPN right now.
Heck, we might be on the news. Yeah, who knows?
It's amazing to me, but that's the leadership too. Is that Jerry is making sure that that's good. That's not bad. What Trayvon Diggs is good. That's not bad.
And that goes back many years, right? When Jalen Smith, after they got flexed, Kevin, they got flexed. And Jalen Smith said, if the owner's okay with it, we are too. And that was a moment where we were like, the owner shouldn't be. The GM should not be okay with that. That should infuriate him so much that heads are going to roll. That should be that way. And it's not going to be that way, man. And this season's a tough one. It's one that they have to sit back and say, how do we fix it? Do they have the ammunition to be able to do it on the other side, though? And right now, because of the money spent on Dak, the money spent on CD, those are where the expectations were, because that money was spent on those guys, that they're going to be that good of a team. They're going to be that high-paid team that goes out and executes like that. But because of that, they don't have the resources to create a winner, and that's where fans are feeling like it's a bleak future.
You know what? And I'm kind of kicking myself at the moment, because when you said that, it reminded me of a question I wanted to ask Steven, and I didn't, and I'm really disappointed about that. I did want to ask, because he talked about their core players going forward. Obviously, you're talking about Diggs, talking about Dak, talking about CD. I'm sure they'll get something done with Micah. My question I wanted to ask him was, do you regret giving Dak that contract before the season, seeing how this would have been a prove-it deal and he would not have proven it? But then again, literally the exact same thing happened last time, and he was out after Game 5 for the rest of the season, and they gave him more money than he had been asking for. So there's no part of me that thinks this contract would have ended up any different.
I mean, that's what Broadus has been saying, right? Is he's mad at his guys. The guys that he expected.
Yeah.
That I've paid you, Zach Martin, you held out, I paid you. CeeDee Lamb, you held out, I paid you. Dak Prescott, you didn't hold out, but you wanted all that money. All the guys that you've been saying, all right, these are the guys that I decided to make the core of this franchise, haven't performed up to what they were supposed to this year.
And for the people who are saying they want to trade like Trayvon Diggs, for example, if you want to trade Dak, it's not going to happen. You want to trade CD, not going to happen. Trayvon Diggs and Micah Parsons are the two players. I'm not saying they need to be traded, but if you really want to tear some stuff down and go big, you don't take as big of a hit on the Trayvon Diggs contract as you might think from a dead money perspective. And obviously you haven't re-signed Micah outside of the rookie deal yet, so you could easily move on from that if you got the correct draft assets. So if people are really upset, those are the two players that you could actually do something about. CD, Dak, you're stuck. Not going to happen. Not going to happen.
I hear you in the history of Jerry Jones.
I don't think it'll happen either.
Jimmy Johnson traded Herschel Walker. Jerry can make up whatever he wants. But then Jerry gets to run the team after they have the divorce, Jimmy and Jerry, and he's never traded a good player somewhat in their prime. He just won't do it. In fact, he adds Jonathan Mingo when the team's horrible.
Yes. And they lost their quarterback.
He will never look at it the way, let's say, a real general manager looks at it, a real football guy looks at it. I mean, that's the one thing that, going back to you, Corey, why did I quit the Cowboys, is they don't have a person running the organization. Jerry's a genius owner. He's just decided for his whole life, I will not have somebody competent at this running the football side. And the thing is, he's not horrible at it. I mean, they can point to winning 36 games, not this year, but the last 3 years. So he can point at that competency. And they stupidly gave him an award in 2016 for being a good general manager. So I look at it and I just go, it's too bad he doesn't know what he doesn't know. He doesn't know he's not good at this. He played football in college, so he thinks he can actually run a football team, and it's been proven he can't. He can't look at things realistically, and it's going to be like that for the rest of his life. And then you have to, I guess, hope Steven looks at it differently, but who's Steven learning under?
And gentlemen, how the heck are we? Hanging in there. I was honestly just concerned for Wolchuk today. Want to make sure my guy's doing all right. He's still got his wrist brace on.
It's been helping.
I thought you might have pounded the table a couple of times in frustration and re-aggravated the wrist injury.
I did.
That is still obviously TBD on the lawsuit stuff.
I definitely, I think, might have heard it again. So,
but emotionally, tough place to be.
With the Braves, yeah, I mean, I can't say like I'm surprised necessarily. You know, we've seen this before, just progressively gets worse. But hey, 43-6, call of the weekend. Gavin Dawson, my goodness gracious, you almost nailed that. I was like, damn, 43-6.
Yes, I didn't know it was going to be that bad. You look at some of the stats here; it was just god awful. But I'm celebrating this actually, guys. Is anybody with me? Like,
yeah,
dude, they might actually be so bad they don't win a game, and they could be in for the number 1 pick, even a top 3, top 5 pick. They could trade down. A couple of good quarterbacks in this class. They could trade down, pick up future 1s, future 2s. Like, this is going amazing. And yesterday actually gave me confidence. They could lose to Carolina in New York.
How about
Kidding me?
They could. Yeah,
they very well could. Best thing I've seen since week 1.
We're at the point now where the win is the loss. And so the loss is the win. So and to me, I know to some extent they can look boring, and at times they definitely do. But when they get goofy on you, I mean, you can't help but be tickled a couple of times on both sides of the ball. Barkley had one of those plays. Poor old Kendricks, man.
Yeah,
that was a tough one.
Yeah,
and that was tough for a lot of folks on that particular play.
Brutal.
But
every time he runs, I feel like it's tough for at least 2 people.
Yes,
it takes a crowd to bring him down.
So to me, they're doing it in a way where they're still providing that comedic relief. What are they doing with the Trey Lance? Here he is. Okay, here we go, and then boom, wait. Did I just see Rush drop back to pass? Are they still in the same drive? Did I get ball sacked by my own television?
Are they playing games with you?
What is going on here right now? So it's hilarious from top to bottom. The sun in the eyes. Are you kidding me? We're still doing this. Jerry's response is amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Micah after the game. So to me, they're giving. If they're not going to win, do what you're doing.
There's no shortage for entertainment. Big picture, like you're absolutely right. I just can never feel that way in a season. You know, like I guess it will as the losses pile up. Like there's some solace in the fact, well, hey, the draft's going to be a lot of fun.
Sure, you just start working on that. Is what you start doing.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you do your due diligence and getting ready every week. I know we're gonna hey, break it down. How are you going to look at this team? Who's the opponent? I think you have to do that, but I think you also now have to just sit there and think, hey, you're just not good enough. You're not going to win enough games. Okay, the reward for that is that you get to pick in the rounds high. And you just have to be ready for that. And it's probably way too early to even talk about draft stuff, but you have to start preparing that your team right now just isn't good enough to compete. And, and you're going to have to fill a lot of spots.
Breaks your Cowboys heart, well, Chuck. I can see it on you. And I know a lot of people out there feel the same way. You know, I don't want to be too cold about it because I'm a little bit more detached than you, but I feel like we've seen this coming for a long time now. You know, at least 8 months of the calendar have been going where we were like, oh, wow, Cowboys might not make the playoffs. And if they do, they're not going to be very good. And then, it's been 2.5 months now since it was revealed how, pathetic this football team may actually be, against the New Orleans Saints. So, I don't know about you, but I feel like we should have known that they're this bad. There should have been no surprise yesterday.
No, I think you're right. It just, there's something with like,
they just continue to outdo themselves, though.
Right, knowing it and then sitting there and living through it and witnessing it.
Should they have had more total plays offensively than passing yards? I don't know.
It's terrible. I mean,
maybe we should have known that. We should have called it in the pregame, Broadus.
They haven't scored a touchdown since Baltimore.
My goodness,
at
home,
like 24 drives.
They've been 2 games without a touchdown at home. It's really, really brutal. It's bad, and yes, it hurts to watch. It does, and it's not like I know where Mike is. I can't, and I don't think we'll ever get to that stage where Mike is. For me, it's not a Jerry Jones thing, right? It's when we stayed up and we listened to calls after the Rangers were in the World Series, it was about, I watched games with my grandparents. I watched games with my uncle, my brother, whoever it was. That's to me why I love the Cowboys. I grew up going to games with my grandparents. It was the most special thing ever to me.
Yeah.
They had season tickets until the last year at Texas Stadium, then got priced out, like so many other loyal fans did because of Jerry. And I paid for my final year at Texas Stadium. I split the season tickets with my grandfather. I love the team because of that, because of the memories, because of the bond. It's not because of Jerry Jones. The players come and go. The owner will come and go. That's something that will always be there. So for me, it's like, I can't stand what Jerry's done to this, but I'll never be able to just, let me join the Chiefs bandwagon here.
Yeah.
That's not that's not what I'm in it for. You know, I want to see this team succeed. And right now, watching this every week, it does. It absolutely sucks.
But don't you think that like a top 3 pick or the number 1 pick is what's in this team's best interest right now? So what you're seeing is actually steps to success.
Well, really, what's in this team's best interest is I will never say that Cooper Rush or Trey Lance are ever in the same realm as Dak Prescott. They're not. I don't know that there's any difference really yesterday if you had Dak. That's a terrible place to be after you just paid your franchise quarterback. So really, with the way this thing's played out, if they hadn't have signed Dak, they'd be in a position where there would be real optimism, because now you have found yourself in a place where you could take a franchise quarterback potentially where they never really are. They haven't been up here since 2016, and they took Ezekiel Elliott 4th overall. Now you will be. Now you will be in a position to maybe do that, but they can't do it because they did pay Dak Prescott. And I don't know what the move is here. We might see them take Dan Ashton-Jeanty again, and he's a good player, but I think we can all look at that and probably have our issues with it, right? But that's kind of – there's not a lot of reason to be like, oh, my gosh, there's so much hope, because, great, you'll come away with an offensive lineman. And, again, they're going to pay Micah Parsons. Like, I don't ever see the salary cap getting figured out where they've got this thing ready to go. We talked a year ago, Brian, during the holidays about – trading Micah for a king's ransom.
Sure.
We got MF'd up and down the fan text and on social media.
We did.
It's nothing against Micah.
Yeah.
It's looking at this thing and how do you actually rebuild and reconstruct this football team. The quickest way to do it is to trade your best asset, especially if he's going to be having headlines like he did yesterday, where I'll actually defend what he said. We can get to that later.
Yeah.
But this is the type of crap where it's like, do you really need that on your team? No. I'd rather get the 2 or 3 first-round picks and really have the opportunity to go ahead and build and reconstruct this thing.
At 877-881-1053, I think it's more of a feeling of helplessness or hopelessness, and we haven't had that in a long time. Like 2014 was a big year after the 500 years of 11, 12, and 13, and every losing year since then has been the result of injuries, and they've been able to remedy it. Now it looks like, wow, it's not clear when this team is going to be good again, and that's kind of a tough pill to swallow, especially since they never took a great shot at winning. You mentioned the Micah Parsons quote from after the game. You want to win games and do great things with the type of legends who put in more time and work than Mike McCarthy ever did. So those are the kind of guys that I have so much sympathy and hurt for. He was asked about, what do you say to people wondering if Mike McCarthy will be the head coach next season? How do you interpret that? The text is open for you. Leave your name and city you're texting from. We'll make you famous here, Brian. Let's start with you.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, though, that teammates, there's such a bond there in that locker room. And I think that's what the message he was trying to convey was that here's a guy like a Zach Martin that's playing on one leg, got a bad shoulder. He's fighting through some things right now. And his level of play is not great. And, but he's still out there battling and trying to see it through. But he's done that. He's answered the bell on those, those many of days and played at such a high level. But as for what, and the ultimate goal is to win a championship. And it looks like that's not going to happen for him. And I think that's what Mike is trying to say. He goes, I feel bad for the amount of wear and tear that man has gone through and the struggles that he's gone through, but not to ever experience a championship. And, Micah might be in a situation where he doesn't either. Someone might say the same thing about him one day. But I think it's more about admiration than it is trying to take a shot at Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, I mean, he's wearing a lot of hats right now, and so he's got to come correct in every part of his whatever his responsibilities are. And when you're the president of Bleacher Report's Gridiron digital service, he's like a managing editor. He's content creating. He's tearing it up as a full-time employee for them. Really getting after it.
Yeah,
he did a great job in the post game with that.
Yeah. No, I think that's a point well taken, Chief. I guess I looked at it a little bit more like Brian, where I think he was, trying to talk about how he has so much respect for these players. And, the fact is Mike McCarthy has had a long career as a coach. He can go on and be an assistant coach or an offensive coordinator for a lot of these players. Their career is done.
Yeah.
And that's a lot more of an emotional experience than, oh man, I'm on my way out for like the 5th time or 6th time in my coaching career. And that's the realization that had to have hit them yesterday. As players, as the season goes on and you're struggling, you can tell yourself, we just got to get this figured out. We've been down before. We're going to bounce back. But when your quarterback is gone and then you go out with your backup and play that horribly.
Yeah.
What was that, like 60 yards passing? Something like that? It was just unbelievable.
The net yardage, I believe, was under 50.
I think it was like 48. I mean, they finished as a team with 49 yards.
49 yards.
49.
Net is 49.
49.
Yeah.
Jim Nantz went with Keystone Cops. Tony went with Bad News Bears. Somebody else was thinking yakety sacks as they were, scrambling around to try to get their hands on that fumble. I thought that was pretty funny. I don't know. What movie did yesterday's game does this season remind you of at 877-881-1053? I absolutely think they could lose the rest of the games this year, although losing to both New York and Carolina would be difficult. Could definitely happen. I just think you're going to line up another 8 times. I think they're going to finish 5-12, and that should be good for the 4th pick, the 6th pick, somewhere in there. That's a hell of an asset. There's a QB on the board. A team goes from 12 up to you. They give you next year's one as well. Mm-hmm. Now you're talking about, hey, we can add, multiple premium assets per draft class. I that's exciting to me, and maybe the top overall pick is out there. That could get a real ransom.
It's definitely out there for you.
They're a game and a half back.
It's a
very number 1 overall pick right now.
Very real chance that you're the worst team in football.
It's hard to think of somebody I would pick the Cowboys to beat right now. Maybe, the Saints beat the Falcons.
Yeah,
Panthers beat the Giants. Are the Cowboys in that group? Are they worse than that group?
They're definitely in that group, and they might be worse. Their quarterback situation, at least with the Saints, they got Derek Carr. Okay, he can win a football game in the NFL. You're now
they
doing
did yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
They beat Atlanta.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's just an example of when you if Dak was healthy and they were playing the whole season, sure, they would pull out a random game here or there. They'd beat the Panthers, they'd beat the Giants, but now with Pooper and with Trey, you're in a world of trouble.
The one thing, maybe somebody at the end of the year, though, if you get somebody like the Commanders who are already in the playoffs and they're trying to rest their guys, maybe something like that where they don't play anybody.
Yeah, then you'll be in a dogfight with another team's backups, and hopefully you don't play yourself out of the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, you hopefully don't do what happened with Houston and the Colts.
Or it ends up being it ends up being the blessing in disguise. The Texans end up winning the game. Remember, Lovie Smith is like, bleep you, I'm winning this game even though you don't want me to, and then they still end up with C.J. Stroud.
214, Gavin, even with the top pick, the culture here is still terrible with the Jones family. And that's true, but they've gotten remarkably close with their bad culture, because of how good the scouts are, how good Will McClay is, the job that they've done accruing talent is there. And I think they're going to cycle back through a hot streak, right? So I'm just trying to, imagine when that is. It might look like, top 15, maybe top 10, top 5 picks for the next couple of years. And you're trying to build a line and an offense good enough that Dak can be a mobile pocket or an immobile pocket quarterback.
Yeah.
If that doesn't work, you still suck. You draft a quarterback maybe after the 2026 or 2027 season. You post June 1 Dak Prescott, and you hope to emerge with a young quarterback and a maturing, developing offensive line with blue-chip dudes. Obviously, you got to find a running back, and you got to find a wide receiver, and you got to keep the defense good at the same time. But I think that's what we're in for. I think that's what we're watching, a multi-year transition, and they try to rebuild the offensive line for Dak like they did for Tony Romo. And it worked incredibly well. I mean, had Romo stayed healthy, that was about to be, the best surrounding group that he'd ever had. So, I don't think all is lost, 214. I appreciate your cynicism about, this football team, but we can't forget what they do well and not even give them credit for that just because we're frustrated.